my dad decided that he had to send me to treatment again because I'd snuck my over-the-counter energy supplements. He thought that I had a problem, but he did show mercy and said that I could be an outpatient there so long as I'd go 4 times a week to Alcoholics Anonymous. Why wasn't Jamie at Alcoholics Anonymous? And by the way, why was she at Alcoholics Anonymous when she had an energy pill supplement problem, supposedly? This is what I'm saying. Jamie doesn't know what he's doing. He's just like doing random things. Like, well, I heard that there's something called AA, some kind of 12 steps. You know, maybe you get yourself under control. So I guess you don't have to go to that rehab center. It was expensive. Maybe if you just go to those meetings. It's like, why don't you go to the meetings, you nightmare? Hey, how are you? Welcome to my channel. My name is Cheer Denise, and today we're doing part 6 of the Britney memoir. Now, I had told you this was going to be the last section, but I guess I can't counter something because there's still 14 chapters, and I don't want to rush all that into one section just to be like, I'm done. Because this is a good book, and I'm enjoying it. So, in this section, we're going to be talking about the conservatorship, but also the time in Vegas, and we're going to be talking about all of the stuff that had to do with her parents completely destroying her life. And we get so many more stories in this section than we had in the previous section. And I don't know, I guess our ghostwriter came back in, or maybe I just have a better attitude about reviewing this section of the book. But the rest of this book was super informative. And also I felt like Britney was so fair and kind about her family, like didn't spare on the details of how they had been so mean and unkind and rude and horrible. But then also she was so gracious, it just made her look beautiful. So I really enjoyed the last part of this book, and I'm excited about reviewing it. If you would just hit the like button if you're watching, if you would hit subscribe, if you keep watching these videos but you haven't subscribed yet, if you would do that, and then just send to a friend if you enjoy, and let's see what else. Oh, comment. YouTube likes it and I like to read them too. Okay, chapter 35 begins with her residency. And she says, my residency started right after Christmas in 2013. The boys were 7 and 8, and in the beginning it was a great gig. She says that she was excited to perform again. The fans loved her. Everybody kept telling her that she, like singularly, was rejuvenating Sin City. She was bringing a new generation to Las Vegas. And, but for her, Vegas would be sort of losing its cultural relevancy, but she was bringing it all back. So she was thrilled to be part of this movement. She says that at the beginning of the Vegas residency, she started dating this guy named Charlie Ebersol. She said to her, he seemed like marriage material, which I feel like we kind of have to take with a grain of salt because she thought Kevin was too. Anyway, Charlie really liked working out. He liked supplements, pre-workout and protein and all of these things. And so he turned her on to the idea that she should really get on some energy supplements if she really wanted to bring it on that Vegas show. So she did, and she was bringing it at the Vegas show. But then Jamie got wind of it, and Jamie's like, I don't think you need to be doing these drugs. You need to go out there and just do it the right way, the way God intended. You're going straight to rehab. And Britney wants to let you know that these were over-the-counter supplements, but apparently her father felt that she was so addicted to them that rehab was the only place for her. So then he puts her in this rehab in Malibu, but she said, don't let that fool you. It wasn't fancy. It was scary. And that there were hardcore crack and heroin addicts, and she just did not feel like that was the place where she needed to be. But she made her peace with it because her dad said it was only for a month. Now, bear in mind that the way this Vegas residency worked, she would work for 4 weeks and be off for 4 weeks. So her off time was spent at a rehab center. Is that the way you want to spend your off time? I mean, ridiculous. But she had a good attitude about it. And she says that when she got out, she started right back in those Vegas shows again, like nothing had happened. She said part of that was because my father told me I had to get back out there. And part of it was because I was still so nice and so eager to please and so desperate to do the right thing and to be a good girl. But then also I think the world's approval is not nothing. And if you feel like your entire life is your dad acting like you aren't good enough and everything you do isn't good enough, and he's controlling every little ounce of anything that you do, to go out there for cheering crowds would be like the ego boost you needed to keep going. She says that no matter what I did, my dad was watching. I couldn't drive a car. Everybody who came to my trailer had to sign waivers. Everything was very, very safe. So safe I couldn't breathe. And the thing is that you and I both know that Britney is addicted to risk, at least some risk. You know, she likes the feeling, the thrill of the unknown and the thrill of being a little bit dangerous. Remember when she was driving around with that photographer pulling a 360 on the edge of a cliff? I mean, anyway, so she said the real thing that was beyond the beyonds for her was the way her dad controlled the food that went into her mouth. You guys, I don't blame her for just being over it with this. I mean, it's like if everything else in life was just terrible, at least you could look forward to food. Not so. Not with Jamie at the helm. She said, no matter how much I dieted and exercised, my father was always telling me I was fat. He put me on a strict diet. And the irony in it was that we had a butler, an extravagance. And I would beg him for real food. Sir, I would plead, can you please sneak a hamburger or ice cream to me? Ma'am, I'm sorry, he would say. I have strict orders from your father. So for 2 years, I ate almost nothing but chicken and canned vegetables. What? With her money? Let's fire the butler and hire a chef. Canned vegetables. Jamie really was the one at the helm. And that's the thing that really smacked of this entire chapter. That Jamie was constantly making decisions that are just lame and terrible and but a shadow of what he should be doing. Like, okay, fine, eat the chicken and vegetables, but canned vegetables? And that's the thing. Everything that he does is so lazy and he's like, I heard you should eat veggies, so go get you a couple of canned mixed veggies, open them up, throw them in the microwave. You know, it's just nothing that he does is with excellence. It's all just he heard you should do this, so he's doing a version of it. Okay, well, she says 2 years is a long time not to be able to eat what you want, especially when it's your body and your work and your soul making the money that everyone's living off of. 2 years of asking for french fries and being told no, I found it so degrading. Yeah, it is degrading. Because here's the thing. It's not like the whole family was on the chicken and canned vegetable diet with her. They were living life, feasting and merrymaking. And there she is, barely able to put 2 calories in her mouth. And her mom's, downing the wine and, cutting up the steak. And then everyone's telling her, no, Britney, no, it's not for you. And could you just imagine how frustrating and just I would just be so outraged. I would just live in a cloud of rage all the time. She says that a strict diet that you've put yourself on is bad enough. But when someone is depriving you of food that you want, that makes it worse. I felt like my body wasn't mine anymore. I would go to the gym and feel so out of my mind with this trainer telling me to do things with my body. I felt cold inside. I felt scared. I'll be honest, I was effing miserable. It's kind of a verbal tick of hers to be like, I'll be honest. It's well, I hope you would be. It is your memoirs. And why wouldn't you be? But anyway, a lot of people say it and I'm like, all right, you can say it once or twice, but I'll be honest every time you say anything. Well, what else would you be doing? Anyway, regardless, the working out was terrible and the not being able to eat was horrific. She said, by the way, all this dieting didn't even work. The diet had the opposite effect of what my father wanted. I gained weight. Even though I wasn't eating as much, he made me feel so ugly and like I wasn't good enough. Maybe that's because of the power of your thoughts. Whatever you think you are, you become. I was so beaten down by all of it that I just surrendered. My mom seemed to go along with my dad's plan for me. Well, of course she gained weight. First of all, again, this is what I'm saying. Jamie doesn't know once he speaks. You can't deprive yourself, especially as a woman. You can't be doing these hard workouts and then depriving yourself of food and then thinking you're going to lose weight. It's not really the way it works when you think about your hormones and all of this. I mean, this isn't a working out podcast, but let me tell you, I'm not surprised she was gaining weight on her canned vegetables and her insane workouts. It was always incredible to me that so many people felt so comfortable talking about my body. It had started when I was young. Whether it was strangers in the media or within my own family, people seemed to experience my body as public property, something they could police and control, criticize, or use as a weapon. My body was strong enough to carry 2 children and agile enough to execute every choreographed move perfectly on stage. And now here I was, having every calorie recorded so that people could continue to get rich off of my body. She said that no one else but me seemed to find it outrageous that my father would set all these rules for me and then go out and drink Jack and Cokes. My friends would visit and get their nails done at spas and drink fancy champagne, and I was never allowed into spas. My family would go to stay in Destin, a pretty beach town in Florida, at a ridiculously beautiful condo that I bought for them, and eat good-tasting food every night while I was starving and working. See, that alone would be enough for me to write a memoir about how my family had hated me. Far apart from the fact that they locked her up all the time, not being able to eat what you want. Like, you guys, food is everything. And if somebody's going to tell me that I can't have what I want when I want it, I mean, it's different than if you were just like, okay, I need to cut back. It's getting out of control here. But if everyone around me was living high off the hog because of the sweat of my brow, while I sat over there and chewed on a couple of celery sticks, you better believe I'd have something to say. By the way, Jamie Lynn, she hasn't stopped being less annoying. She says, my sister was turning her nose up at every gift I'd given the family. I called my mom one day in Louisiana and said, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, the girl's not going down to Destin tomorrow, she said. Jamie Lynn had said so many times that she never went there, that it was one more of those ridiculous things I'd bought the family that she never wanted. And it turned out that my mom went there every weekend with Jamie Lynn's 2 daughters. Well, Jamie Lynn might still have hated it down in Destin, which, what is wrong with her? But, and so her sending her daughters isn't exactly the same thing as her going. But the fact that she would wander around being like, oh, why did Britney do that for us? Why don't you just shut up, Jamie Lynn, and, do some more of your second-rate dancing on your second-rate show. She says that the thing is that there was a time when she loved buying her family houses and cars. It was really fun to be able to gift those things. But then at a certain point, the whole family started acting like it was their right and just took the whole thing for granted. So she's over there slaving and slaving and slaving, so much to the point where she says she wasn't really able to be creative anymore. She was just functioning as a robot just so they could continue to live in the lap of luxury while she was basically the slave girl. To make matters worse, while they're spending her money like there's no tomorrow, she was only given $2,000 a week. Now, for the rest of us, it's like, okay, well, $2,000 is pretty good. But not when you have millions and millions and millions of dollars that everybody else is spending and you get $2,000 a week and not a penny more. She said that one of the only nights that I went out with a friend and others, including my dancers, for dinner, I tried to pick up the check for our whole party. The check was over $1,000, but she wanted to, gift everybody this fun evening and take care of it. But when they ran her debit card, could she pay for it? No, because that was going to mean that she had spent more than her $2,000 that week. So no, and her card was declined in front of everybody. What? Can you even imagine? Like, humiliation. And every single cent that her family was spending was hers. But she can't even pay for a dinner with her and her friends. It's so humiliating. See, these are the examples I was looking for last week. It's stuff like this. This is what I want. This is what I wanted Britney to tell us. Let me put this dog down. He's asleep and snoring, and he's making noises. 1 second. Chapter 36. So she says, one thing that brought me solace and hope during this time when I was in Vegas was teaching little kids. So she said that she once a month got to go teach children from 5 to 12 at a dance studio. And she loved it. She said, the joy and trust of kids the age of the ones I taught between 5 and 12 is contagious. Their energy is so sweet. They want to learn. I found it 100% healing to be around children. Well, one time while she's teaching a class, she accidentally bumped into a little 5-year-old and she felt so bad about it. And, she goes to the little girl. She's like, baby, I'm so sorry. She said, I felt so bad that I got on my knees in front of her. I pulled off a ring off my finger, one of my favorite rings, and I gave it to her while begging her forgiveness. Miss Britney, it's fine, she said. She didn't even hurt me. I wanted to do anything I could to let her know that I cared if she was in pain and that I would do whatever it took to make it up to her. Looking up at her from my knees on the dance studio floor, I thought, wait a minute. Why are the people who are charged by the state with my care not half as interested in my well-being as I am in this little girl's? And also, by the way, if Britney is so out of control that she can't even manage to function in her own life, she can't figure out what to eat, she can't figure out how to spend her money, God forbid she drive a car, why are they putting her in charge of a room of 5 to 12-year-old girls to teach them how to dance? Isn't she some kind of a risk for them? You know what I mean? It's like nothing that this conservatorship did made sense. I mean, no wonder Britney was so frustrated. Because it's like, you can work your fingers to the bone, but you're not allowed to do anything else. But if I am so unwell that I can't figure out what to eat, then I really can't do anything else. I cannot go out and work for you. The fact that the state thought that this was acceptable, that this wasn't slavery, is unbelievable to me. The fact that they thought that anybody having this much control over somebody's life, but that person was capable of making millions of dollars, and the judge just kept signing off on things and not listening to anything Britney said. I mean, like, what was going on there? Okay, well, she says that she decided to make a push to get out of the conservatorship. I went to court in 2014 and mentioned my father's alcoholism and erratic behavior, and I asked that they drug test him, but the judge just didn't listen. What followed was a cloak and dagger effort to get my own lawyer. I even mentioned the conservatorship on a talk show in 2016, but somehow that part of the interview didn't make it to the air. Huh, how interesting. That feeling of being trapped contributed to the collapse of my romantic life. After a stupid fight, Charlie and I got so prideful that we stopped speaking to each other. It was the dumbest thing. I couldn't bring myself to talk to him, and he had too much pride to talk to me. He was probably tired of being with somebody who couldn't have any of her own freedom. I mean, that would be so weird to date somebody who couldn't do anything. I mean, it would be like dating a child. And I'm not blaming Britney for that. I'm just saying, like, if you were Charlie, you might have been like, well, here's my out, you know? I hate that for her, but I'm just saying. Well, she says that around this time, she started working with two great songwriters, Julia Michaels and Justin Tranter. She said we'd sit and write everything together. I had passion about it. It was the one thing in the 13 years of the conservatorship that I really put my heart into. I worked hard on the songs, which gave me confidence. You know when you're good at something and you can feel it? You start doing something and you think, I got this. Writing that album gave me my confidence back. So during this time, during the conservatorship, she did write the album Glory, which Sean Preston himself named. And she said that she was so proud of it. And she said, I released the video for Make Me, and I went on the 2016 VMAs to perform it in support of it for the first time since 2007. She said that it was in the making of that album that she met her now husband. Although, are they divorced? I don't know if they're divorced yet, but I kept hearing they were getting divorced. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. Anyway, at the point of this book, when she wrote this, she was married to Hassam Askahari. And the first time she saw him was on the making of her video, Slumber Party. She says, I knew I wanted him in my life immediately. I was instantly smitten. The chemistry with us in the beginning was insane. We couldn't keep our hands off of each other. He called me his lioness. Right away, the tabloids started saying that he was cheating on me, but we'd been dating 2 weeks. We stayed with each other. I started to feel my spark returning. You just have to wonder about the guys who were willing to be with her during this conservatorship. Like, it was so arduous to have to be with her. If you'll recall from last time, we talked about how her dad would make you take blood test. You had to sit down with her dad and talk about her sexual history. You had to sign an NDA. I mean, it was not like just like going out with a girl. It was this rigmarole background check foolishness. And, you know, it's like, I look at these guys who are willing to date her, and it just feels like yet one more man who wanted to prey on her and her money and her incapacitation. Because I just don't understand. I don't know any like healthy male who would find this to be an appropriate situation to be in. Anyway, I guess Hassam felt okay with it. Now she says, my dad decided that he had to send me to treatment again because I'd snuck my over-the-counter energy supplements. He thought that I had a problem, but he did show mercy and said that I could be an outpatient there so long as I'd go 4 times a week to Alcoholics Anonymous. Why wasn't Jamie at Alcoholics Anonymous? And by the way, why was she at Alcoholics Anonymous when she had an energy pill supplement problem, supposedly? This is what I'm saying. Jamie doesn't know what he's doing. He's just like doing random things. Like, well, I heard that there's something called AA, some kind of 12 steps. You know, maybe you get yourself under control. So I guess you don't have to go to that rehab center. It was expensive. Maybe if you just go to those meetings. It's like, why don't you go to the meetings, you nightmare? Anyway, she says at first she resisted, like she didn't want to do it. But then after going, she really did like to hear the women's stories. And it was the closest she'd ever felt to a group of women because they were just being so raw and honest. And she started to realize that like these people have common sense and like they have hard stories too. And I'm not this outlier who's struggling. I mean, also her story was terrible, but a lot of it was terrible because of what had been put upon her, not because of her personal choices. But just sitting in a room where people were being open and honest was probably like crazy wild to her, that people would sit there and share their junk and not care about curating it for the listening ear. You're not worried about being judged for it because everybody's sitting there and telling their hard stories. She said that their stories were actually very, very profound. I found a human connection in those meetings that I'd never found anywhere in my life. Yeah, of course you didn't, because Lynn's the one running your show, and Lynn's the one who wants to cover everything all the time. Now, Brittany, we're not going to say that. That's ugly. You know, that's Lynn's behavior. And so to sit there in a room full of people who are telling all their ugly stuff would have been like wild. Okay, well, the thing though that she said was hard for her about those meetings is that she really looked forward to some of the people that were there. Like she made friends with them, but they didn't have the restrictions on their life. So they would go to the meetings, they would go to the daily meetings, but there was a morning meeting, there was an evening meeting, and they weren't consistent about when they came, if they even came, because it is outpatient. You don't have to go to the meetings. Now you should if you want to do the program, but they're living their life. Brittany had to go to the meetings every week, and she had to do it 4 times a week at the same time every day. So she didn't always get to see her friends there. And so that was like the only deterrent about the situation. But the other thing that was hard was how rigorous her parents made her keep up with those meetings because, well, everybody else in the program would come and go as they pleased, not Brittany. And she said one time after a string of really tough shows, she comes home and, her dad's like, well, it's time for your meeting. And she's like, can I just please stay home? I'd love to just pop some popcorn and watch a movie with the boys. I'm tired. And not everybody goes to the meetings every single time. And I still am doing the program, but I'm tired. They're like, no, absolutely not. You're going to your meeting. She says, at that moment, I started to feel like I was in a cult and my father was the cult leader. They were treating me like I was beholden to him. Because everybody in the family, from mother, sisters to little boys, were like, you have to go to your meeting. But nobody would just let her rest because Jamie said, keep working, keep going to your meetings. You have things to do. Well, everybody else had just laid back on the couch, scrolling their phones and eating snacks. I was so good, I thought, reflecting on how hard I'd worked in those shows. I wasn't good. I was great. That line ran through my mind repeatedly over the next couple of years when I thought about the ways in which I had not just met but exceeded the expectations that had been set for me and how unfair it was that I still wasn't free. She said I'd worked so hard to keep up the schedule that they set for me, basically 4 weeks on, 4 weeks off. When I was on, I did 3 2-hour shows a week. And on or off, I also kept the weekly schedule they set for me. 4 AA meetings, 2 hours of therapy, and 3 hours of training a week, plus fan meet and greets and 3 shows. I was burned out, and I wanted to control my own destiny. Can you believe that? I mean, that is the most grueling schedule I've ever read. And this is a person who's so unwell they can't manage their life, but they can keep up with the schedule. Wild. And that's exactly what this one hairdresser told her. She said one hairdresser caught a glimpse of my schedule and she said, oh, honey, what are you doing? She had 2 little girls and was very maternal. I liked her a lot. You think it's too much? I asked her. That's more than too much. She said, that's insane. She leaned in like she had a secret to tell me. Listen, she said, in order to be creative, you have to have room for play in your schedule. It helps ground you to have that time to yourself. Hell, just stare at the wall if you want. People need that. It must have gone back to my father, what she'd said, because the next day somebody else was doing my hair. And I never saw that hairdresser again. No, not the kind hairdresser. I mean, it's like stuff like that. This is what I wanted. This is what I wanted last section. Like all of these stories about how her dad is just undermining her authority and her humanity time and time and time and time again. Why can't she have a conversation with the hairdresser? And by the way, yes, hairdresser, you are correct. You have got to have some downtime, some mental downtime to keep on being creative. How can you have time to create if you have no silence, no time for silence? That's where creativity begins. But again, Jamie, this buffoon, this bumbling fool, who just, I'm Britney Spears now. And he just comes waddling in to tell everybody what to do, but he doesn't have a flipping clue. And he's just doing everything all wrong. But he's like, it's just like, he just wants the power, but he doesn't care if he's doing it right. It's just, I get to have my say. I mean, obviously, the conservatorship is all wrong, but I'm just saying, even if he felt like he needed to come in and take some control, he doesn't care about the excellence of it. He's over there serving canned vegetables, giving her no time for rest or peace, giving her no downtime. Controlling the relationship she's in. Like, how does he think that she's going to be able to keep being this cash cow if he runs her into the ground like this? Okay, chapter 37. She starts the chapter by talking about long hair. And she had a theory about long hair. She's mentioned it before. She says that men love long hair and that if you have long hair, you've already more than gotten into the hearts of many a man. And she said that when it comes to performers, the real thing that guys want to see is you thrashing your hair around. So she made sure not to do that when she was performing, not because she suddenly had developed this virginal trait, but because she wanted to lessen her performance and lessen the thrill because that would make her dad mad. She said, in the most demoralizing moments of my Las Vegas residency, I wore tight wigs and I'd dance in a way where I couldn't move a hair on my head. Everyone was making money off of me, and they wanted me to move my hair, and I knew it. And so I did everything but that. When I look back, I realized how much of myself I withheld on stage, and how much by trying to punish the people who held me captive, I punished everyone else too, including my loyal fans, including myself. But now I know why I'd been sleepwalking through so much of the past 13 years. I was traumatized. By holding back on stage, I was trying to rebel in some way, even if I was the only one who knew that was happening. And so I didn't toss my hair or flirt. I did the moves, I sang the notes, but I didn't put the fire behind it that I had in the past. Toning down my energy on stage was my own version of a factory slowdown. I mean, here's the thing. That really was her only way to have a voice in her entire life, was to just be like, fine, I'll do it, but I'm not going to put my heart and soul into this. Like, get the hell out of here if you think I will. I mean, I honestly, that to me would be the only strategy anybody could have come up with. Was like, all right, fine, I'll get up there, but I'm going to do like this dance. This is what we're doing here. Not moving my head, because why would you perform like a trained monkey for these people? They've taken everything from you. I completely understand. But she says that it was different with Glory. When it came to singing songs off of that album, she says the Glory singles rolled out and I started getting more passionate about my performances. I started to wear high heels again. When I wasn't trying so hard and I just let myself elevate as a star on stage, that's when it came across the most powerfully. And that's when I could really feel the audiences lifting me up. The thing is that she always wanted to please her fans, but I think if her fans had had any idea that this was going on, they wouldn't have wanted her to come out there and like really bring it under those circumstances. The sad thing is that she just couldn't tell anybody what was happening. So if people went to the show and thought, oh, that wasn't really what I was expecting it to be, if they knew under the circumstances and why she wasn't really bringing it, I think they would have supported her being a little bit robotic. She said that promoting Glory really was the thing that put life into her again. And she says that she began to feel herself get a little bit of fire back. And it began to feel like maybe life was possible again. Slowly, I began to believe in my capabilities. For a while, I didn't tell anyone. I kept it a secret, just as I had escaped into my dreams, to get away from the chaos of my parents when I was a little girl. Now, as an adult, but with less freedom than I'd had as a child, I began to escape into a new dream, freedom from my family, and a return to being the artist I knew I had in me. Everything began to seem possible. Hassam and I became so close that we started to talk about having a baby together. But I was in my 30s, so I knew that time was running out. Interesting. So I guess she and Hassam aren't just like flirting on set anymore. I mean, it must be getting pretty serious if they're talking about having a baby. Okay, but how was she going to have this baby? Because at the beginning of the conservatorship, there were doctors in and out of her house day after day after day. A whole stream of doctors, like 12 doctors a week. 12 doctors a week? Like what? Was there a doctor for every system of her body? And under the care of these doctors, her father had decided that he was going to have power over her reproduction and had made her have an IUD. And so now, even if she wanted a baby or not, she wasn't going to get one. The wildness of this blows my mind. I knew that her dad was in charge of her reproduction. I think we've all heard about that or heard some comment about it. But reading it again just struck me as so insane. This woman in her 30s who has never had any test done that says that she is incapable of existence. Her father has decided to interfere with her physical body and get in the way of her reproduction. I mean, why doesn't he just go and begin a meeting of the Eugenics Society? I don't think Britney should be allowed to have any more babies. I don't think it would be the right thing for her. She's a woman in her 30s. She's lived her whole life as a free and independent woman, but I've decided no more babies for Britney. Well, who says you get to say, you fat old man? Like, what in the world is this? How did any doctor at all do this procedure on Britney and feel like this was ethical? Did she fight back at all? Like, you just have to wonder, how did Britney accept that this was happening? Did she try to fight them? Did she try to keep from, being in the position in which they could put the IUD in? I mean, like, did they have to sedate her? I mean, my mind just runs rampant at like the scene. Or did she just decide, well, I don't really want kids right now anyway? I mean, at the time when it was done, was it something she wanted, or was it something that Jamie's like, you are going to have this done? When the conservatorship happened, everything became controlled with security guards everywhere. My whole life changed in a way that might have been safer for me physically, but was absolutely horrible for my sense of joy and creativity. A lot of people have said, oh, your life was saved. But no, not really. It's the way you look at it. It's perspective. My music was my life, and the conservatorship was deadly for that. It crushed my soul. Before the conservatorship, I'd been in and out of studios recording. During the conservatorship, a team of people kept track of when I was going to the toilet in the recording studio. I'm not even kidding. She says that I read after the conservatorship that my father and Robin at Lou's company TriStar had been involved with a security company that they hired, Black Box, in monitoring and reviewing calls and texts coming out of and going to my cell phone, including private texts with my boyfriend, my lawyer at the time, and my own kids, and worse, that my father even had a bug put in my home, in my own home. This was all part of their control. See, whose idea was it to limit her creativity like this? To bug her house? To care enough to monitor her private texts between her and her boyfriend? This is the actions of a maniac. These are not the actions of any person who should be allowed to have a conservatorship. All that a judge should have needed to see was all of the ways in which Jamie had completely overstepped the bounds of what an actual conservator would do. These are not even the things that a conservator would do at all. Legally, there's like so many things he's done here that would breach the legal role that he had in her life. Why? Why is it that no judge would look at the list of ways in which he has broken the law and just be like, keep going. Do your thing, Jamie. I mean, any judge that sat over these cases and let this pass, we should have serious questions about them. These judges seem to have some serious issues reading the law in an ethical way. And does anybody want to do a deep dive on that? Okay, well, she says that I'd left home as a teenager because my family life was terrible. And all those times at 4 o'clock in the morning when I had to go out into the living room as a little girl and say, shut up, mama, as my father lay passed out drunk in his chair, those times would come back to me at 4 in the morning when I woke up and stared at the ceiling, wondering how those people had come to be in charge again. In those quiet moments in the middle of the night, I swore to do everything I could to escape. Chapter 38. In this section, we're going to start talking about how the residency in Las Vegas is really losing its shine. That at the very beginning, it was like, okay, this is pretty fun. You know, the fans love me. I'm working again. You know, I hate my life in the conservatorship, but the performing was fun at first. Because, you know, the first time you do the show, it's fun. But then after you've done it a billion times, over and over and over and over and over, and every step is the same, and every song is the same, and every note is the same, and you've done it like 1,000 times, she was sick of it. It's boring. She wants to stop. And she just wants, like, can we add something to this show? Because she's a performer. That's what she does. And she's not an idiot in that realm. She's made millions of dollars doing it. She's been around the industry since she was 15 years old. You'd think that they would have listened to her. But no, of course Jamie couldn't listen to her because he's too busy opening cans of mixed vegetables and slapping some Tyson chicken on a plate. He has no concept of how to do this well and how to actually make some money off of his daughter. And that's the thing that is so outrageous. Because of his pride, I'm not saying that it's, you know, that this would be a good thing, but I'm just saying he's so prideful. He can't imagine that there's a better way to do this conservatorship, that he could have made even more money off of her if she had been allowed to speak and say, well, creatively, I think what we should do is X, Y, and Z. But no, he couldn't listen to that. Because I'm in charge. I'm Britney Spears now, and you're going to go up there and do that same song about Toxic, because I think that one was a hit. She says that the residency was set to end December 31st, 2017. I couldn't wait. For one thing, I was so sick of doing the same show week after week for years. I kept begging for a remix or a new number, anything to break the monotony. I'd started to lose the joy in performing that I'd felt when I was younger. I no longer had the pure, raw love of singing that I'd had as a teenager. Now other people were telling me what to sing and when. No one seemed to care about what I wanted. The message I kept getting was that their minds mattered, and my mind was to be ignored. I was just there to perform for them, to make them money. It was such a waste. And as a performer who had always taken so much pride in her musicianship, I can't stress enough how mad I was that they wouldn't even let me change up my show. We had weeks in between each set of shows in Vegas. So much effing time was wasted. I wanted to remix my songs for my fans and give them something new and exciting. And when I wanted to perform my favorite songs like Change Your Mind or Get Naked, they wouldn't let me. It felt like they wanted to embarrass me rather than let me give my fans the best possible performance every night, which they deserved. Instead, I had to do the same show week in and week out, the same routines, the same songs, the same arrangements. I'd been doing this same kind of show for a long time. I was desperate to change it up, to give my wonderful loyal fans a new and electrifying experience. But all I heard was no. And she says what we've all been thinking. She says, it was so lazy, it was actually odd. I worried about what my fans would think of me. I wished I could communicate that I wanted to give them so much more. I love to go to studios for hours at a time and do my own remixes with the engineer. But they said, you can't put remixes in because of the time code of the show. We would have to redo the whole thing. And I said, redo it. I'm known for bringing new things to the table, but they always said no. When I pushed, the best they could offer me, they said, was to play one of my new songs in the background when I was changing. They acted like they were doing me a huge favor by playing my favorite new song while I was underground, frantically taking my costumes off. That's not what she wanted. That wasn't what she wanted at all. I want to perform new things. I want new choreography. I want new dance moves. I'm tired of this. And it's like, if they wanted her to come out and bring it on stage because, she wasn't whipping her hair around, or maybe if they had given her some new music, she could have been convinced to whip her hair around a little bit. Well, she said that it was just embarrassing because she knew the business and she knew it was totally possible to change the show. My father was in charge, and it wasn't a priority to him. And not only was it not a priority to him, may I say, Britney, he was too ignorant to know that that would have made things better. That meant that the people who would need to make it happen just wouldn't do it. Singing such old versions of songs made my body feel old. I craved new sounds, new movement. I feel now that it might have scared them for me to actually be the star. Instead, my dad was in charge of the star, me. I would have lived in a perpetual state of outrage if I had been Britney Spears at this time. I just would not have been able to cope. I just would have been so angry all the time because it would have just felt like nobody cares at all my side of things. Nobody cares that I could make this something. And you all want to boss me and tell me what to do, but you don't even know this industry. You want to make money? Let's make some money, but no, they wouldn't even listen to it. But I think the other thing that would have just been like unbelievably annoying was how now the family is turning to little Jamie Lynn and they're trying to make her a star. But Jamie Lynn doesn't have the star power. Jamie Lynn looks like she's just trying to copy Big Sister all the time. And it's just awkward and sad. And it's like, I've never looked at Jamie Lynn and been like, oh, she's a legitimate star in her own right. It's just like, oh, like the little sister of, and I don't know. Britney goes on to describe a time in which the whole Jamie Lynn thing was just rubbed in her face. Now, it started off that she says, when I did the videos for the singles from Glory, I felt so light and so free. Glory reminded me what it felt like to perform new material and how much I needed it. When I was told I'd be receiving the first ever Radio Disney Icon Award the year after Glory came out, I thought, this is great. I'll take the boys and wear a cute little black dress and it'll be a lot of fun. Well, as I sat in the audience seeing a medley of my songs performed, I had so many feelings. But by the time Jamie Lynn made a surprise appearance to do a little bit of Till the World Ends and to hand me my award, I was a ball of emotion. Now the thing is that previously, she says, as she's watching Jamie Lynn prance across the stage, she was reminded of a time when she had done a special concert for In the Zone. It was a remixed ABC special. She said that she'd rehearsed for a week and sung several new songs. They shot me so beautifully, I felt like a kid. Frankly, it's some of my best work. There was a cabaret vibe to the sultry rendition of Baby One More Time. And then for every time, I wore a pretty white dress. It was just really, really beautiful. It had felt so incredible to be at that stage of my career, free and performing my music my way with so much creative control. But now, as she was sitting there to receive the Icon Award at the Radio Disney Music Awards, even though I was honored by the performances, I was furious. Here were 3 singers and my sister doing new performances, something I had begged for 13 years, having fun with my songs in a way I hadn't in hundreds of performances, and I was sitting there having to smile. Okay, I know this was a short episode. That's where we're going to stop because I have to get to school. But can you even handle the fact that this is Britney's life now? Little Jamie Lynn is up there performing new varieties and new versions and new remixes of her song, something that she had begged for, and they won't give it to her, but they're going to let Jamie Lynn go up on stage and sing Britney songs and do remixes of them. How could you even handle the outrage? I would be so outraged all the time. And Britney does say that. Like, she's like, I had so much underlying rage and anger and indignation and angst over everything that was happening. And I can't imagine being able to feel any other way because it's so wildly unfair what is happening in her life. And it seems like everything that could be manufactured to make you feel small, insignificant, demeaned, it's like her family is doing it. It's like they have a playbook on how do you make somebody go insane? And they're doing all the things. So anyway, that was the end of this episode. I'm sorry, it wasn't really our traditional lengthy episode, but I'll have another one coming out later this week. And I'll see you guys later. Bye.